Welcome to EETF episode 89B. Nick Bambach couldn't join us for episode 89, so here are his thoughts about a few recent movies available now. Also, make sure to listen to EETF episode 89 and to the Rockin' Retrospect podcast. Thanks.
Hey, Patrick and the EETF crew, this is Nick. Thank you so much for letting me record something on my own to share with your listeners. Unfortunately, I could not be there today. I had a busy schedule this week, but I am always down to talk about movies. So I'm going to give 5 movies that I really enjoyed with 2 honorable mentions. I'm going to be as succinct as possible to say why I would recommend these movies that were released in the last 2 months or so. So from about late July to mid-September. So the first movie I'm going to recommend is The Naked Gun. Now, I was very skeptical of this reboot when it was announced. I thought that it was sacrilegious, and I really didn't know what to expect, especially with Liam Neeson in the role of Frank Drebin. But I went in with low expectations, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was hilarious. It was I thought, a largely faithful version of the Naked Gun series that keeps the style while also being super funny. So many one-liners that I legitimately laughed my ass off in the theater. And I just thought it was really wonderful. I'm curious if they continue with this series in the future. It did pretty well at the box office. So that's the first one that I would recommend is The Naked Gun. The second movie I'm going to recommend is a movie I know some of the EETF folks had seen already, and that is Weapons. Weapons was one of my most anticipated movies of the year because the director worked on Barbarian from a few years ago, and I absolutely loved that movie. And this is just one of those movies where I think it's like Sinners, where you have to go in pretty blind, I think, to best appreciate it. You can't really know anything about the story, and I thought they did a really fantastic job of marketing the film with the poster and the tagline that they used to entice audiences to come to the theaters. And this made a lot of money at the box office. It was #1 for many weeks. And I think that horror films in particular have been really strong this year. They've been really strong this decade, really. Like some of the best films I've seen all year round. And I go to the movies hundreds of times a year. Some of my most enjoyable film experiences have been horror films. And I saw this with a sold out audience, and I thought it was really, really masterfully done. And I can't wait to rewatch it. I'm going to try to see it maybe one more time in theaters before its theatrical run. But it'll definitely be a big hit on HBO Max when that's released, probably in the next month or so before Halloween. The next movie I'm going to recommend is also another horror film that I saw in late July, and stars a real life couple, Dave Franco and Alison Brie. That's Together. This is a body horror film in the David Cronenberg style. It's it works so well because it's so meta, and that's because of the actors being married in real life, and they're both genuinely likable people, and I think it plays up to their strengths. And I thought that the story was very imaginative, and I thought it did a really good job of balancing elements of comedy and horror really well. And there's one needle drop in the film that I think might be the best needle drop all year round. I won't spoil it for listeners, but when you hear it and you know what happens at the end, I think it's pretty damning. It's one that you should go definitely watch at some point when it hits the streaming services. My next one that I'm going to recommend is one that did not really get a lot of attention. And it's really weird because Taron Egerton, he is really one of the best actors in Hollywood. He, of course, was Elton John in Rocket Band. He started Carry On, sang Tetris, among other films. And I think he's a really wonderful actor. And that's the movie She Rides Shotgun. And I remember this getting a release in August. It got thrown into theaters for like a week or so. And I went to go see it just because of Taron. Apologies, just because of Taron. And I was really mesmerized by his performance, his ability to play complicated characters, and yet they're so charismatic and likable too at the same time. It's really hard to describe for me why I think he's a really special actor, but he has that it factor that makes me want to watch almost anything he stars in. And it's a shame because a lot of his stuff has been on streaming platforms like Apple TV Plus, Netflix, Hulu, and so on. And it's really nice to see him in a actual theatrical release like She Rides Shotgun. And I thought the actress who played his daughter, the child actress, I thought she was wonderful in the story. And it's a film that takes place in New Mexico, and it's a crime drama slash thriller about the drug cartels there. I won't really spoil too much about it, but it had a lot of really good twists and turns. And I really liked the fact that it kept you guessing. And I think that it's definitely worth your time and attention whenever it does hit streaming services. I feel like this is one that I think a lot of people won't have on their radar, but it's definitely worth your time and attention for sure. And then the last movie I'm going to recommend is one that I saw last week, and that's The Long Walk, this adaptation of the Stephen King novel when he wrote it as Richard Bachman. I just read the novel for the book club that I host, and it's really weird because the book is good. It's a dystopian pre-Hunger Games esque story, but it is a little one note, the novel. So I was a little worried when they were announcing that it was going to be adapted to a film. But I thought they were all really fantastic. The young actors in this movie, it reminded me a lot of this year's Warfare, where you're seeing so many young actors in these predominant roles. And in probably like 10 years, we're going to say, wow, this person was in this movie and that person was in this movie. And it's just like, I think it'd be one of those lightning in a bottle type of productions. And I think this is arguably one of the better Stephen King adaptations out there because his record is shaky at best in terms of directors and producers adapting his works. It's a bleak film, but it's a definitely an important film that I think will spark some really good conversations with audiences in particular. So I highly recommend Long Walk. And then I'm just going to give two really quick honorable mentions that I think are also worth your time and attention as well. Sorry, Baby. That's Ava Victor's film debut. It's an indie comedy drama, and I won't spoil anything about the plot, but I thought it did a really masterful job of taking a very serious topic and showing the complexities and rawness and of how trauma and a traumatic incident could affect an individual. Performances and writing are so good in this movie. I feel like this is one that I hope gets a lot of attention, especially when it comes to award season later on in the year. And I'd be remiss too if I didn't mention Spike Lee's latest film with Denzel Washington, Highest to Lowest. It's a film that is a reimagination of Akira Kurosawa's High and Low. This movie was really it's a lighter film, I think, in Lee's filmography, but I thought it did a really good job of it being just entertaining. And it's a good reminder of why Denzel Washington is such a superb lead-in man, and he could captivate and elevate any story. And I thought ASAP Rocky's performance was incredible in that movie as well. I didn't really love the ending. I thought it was a little too on the nose, but Lee's a really solid filmmaker, and anything he does, and especially when he collaborates with Denzel, it's so good. So those are a couple honorable mentions. And I'm going to get to really quickly a few films that I did not like at all in the last few months. I saw the reboot of I Know What You Did Last Summer. Oh my God, guys, it was so bad. I can't. This was a seeming pile of shit, and honestly had such unlikable characters, and it just did not work or jive well. The story, and I thought it did a disservice to the franchise, which was never really a good franchise anyway. I didn't really like the first. I Know He Did Last Summer from the late 90s, but yeah, just a crappy film. Skip it. I can't believe audiences even gave it a shot, and it did okay at the box office. Another one I'm just going to go through really quick is Americana. That's the movie that was filmed a couple years ago with Sydney Sweeney, Paul Walter Hauser, Halsey, Simon Rex. And it's like this Tarantino style Western that takes place in the contemporary. I just did not like it. It was non-linear. It was very confusing, unnecessarily hard to follow. And yeah, just the performances were really weird. Like Sydney Sweeney didn't really convince me that she was any better of an actress than I thought she was. Not really a good actress. So I didn't really think much of her. Halsey was good at it. Nicole Walter Hauser is always good at everything, but the story direction was just a mess. And I didn't like that one. Just like I didn't like Honey Doe. That is the Ethan Coen film that just came out with Margaret Qualley, Audrey Plaza, Chris Evans, and Charlie Day. I think we know who the most talented Coen brother is because after Drive Away Dolls last year, now Honey Doe, this was just a shitty film. Bad screenplay, bad editing. It didn't really feel like anything came together. And the word I kept going back to thinking about this movie was that was just uneven. And it's such a shame because I think some of the performers are relatively good in this film, but it's just when you don't have good direction and good editing, that can't save a movie to save its life. And it says it in the title itself. It says, honey, don't. And I would say, honey, don't watch this movie. So definitely don't check that out. And the last two I'm going to mention really quickly is the remake of The War of the Roses called The Roses with Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman. I thought that this was going to be a good film, but I wasn't really sure what to expect, honestly, because it got really high audience scores and it got decent critic reviews. But it's a film where it disappointed me because it felt like it wasted the ensemble cast. Even when you look at the poster, it had all these actors from TV shows and other movies that are all familiar to us, like Andy Samberg and Kate McKinnon, among others. But it just felt like the setup was way too long. And I blame Jay Broach's direction here. And it just did not get that interesting until the end. And I think it lacked also the satirical edge of the original one with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner and Danny DeVito. I don't know. It's one that a lot of people liked, but it just did not work for me. It had very much like a lot of these films I'm mentioning, the ones I don't like. It had this straight to streaming vibe to it that just made it rather forgettable to me. And it's sad because Cumberbatch is really good in this film, and Coleman's okay. She does her part, but Cumberbatch is really fantastic, and I don't think the end result matches what he was trying to do here. And then the last one I'm just going to mention before I go is a film I actually just got out of seeing today, and that was A Big Bold Beautiful Journey with Colin Farrell and Margaret Robbie. I didn't know what to expect with this movie because it looks like a rom-com, but it's definitely not a rom-com. Once you start to watch the movie, it's actually a film about trauma and sadness, and it's much heavier than I thought it was going to be. It just didn't work on almost every conceptual level for me, and I feel like it's a film that really didn't pull its weight in almost every category. And the worst of all, I feel, with this romance film is that Robbie and Farrell really did have good chemistry. And I feel like that really hurts a film that is targeted as a romance work. So for me, Big Bold Beautiful Journey was a rather big disappointment. Beautiful film, as in the title, but just lacked substance. And it's rather forgettable, in my opinion. Those are all the movies I wanted to talk about. Thank you, Patrick, for letting me talk to your listeners today. And I hope you all enjoyed my recommendations and check out Patrick's podcast, The ETF. Thank you all. Have a good night.